The hospital bracelet around her wrist had become a permanent fixture. Room 314, ICU, where machines kept her son's body alive while his spirit had already departed 3 days ago. But when Ellen asked Maria Santos how she was coping, her answer revealed the devastating reality of a mother's final act of love. "Tomorrow I'm saying goodbye when they harvest his organs." Maria Santos, 42, sat in the interview chair with the hollow-eyed appearance of someone who had been living on hospital coffee and sheer willpower for 72 hours. Her clothes were wrinkled from sleeping in waiting room chairs, and her hands trembled slightly as she spoke. What brought Maria to Ellen's show wasn't celebration or achievement, but rather the most heartbreaking decision any parent could face: choosing to donate her brain-dead son's organs to save 5 other people's children. The Ellen DeGeneres Show had invited Maria during their Heroes Among Us week, honoring people who made extraordinary sacrifices for others. Maria's story had reached the producers through a social media post that had gone viral, a mother's heartbreaking announcement that she was donating her teenage son's organs after a devastating car accident. Her post about finding meaning in tragedy and saving other families from her pain had touched millions of people around the world. What Ellen's audience didn't understand was that Maria was sitting in the studio less than 24 hours before the scheduled organ harvest surgery, having left her son's bedside for the first time in 3 days to share their story. 16-year-old Miguel Santos had been declared brain dead after a drunk driver ran a red light and struck his car as he drove home from basketball practice. Now Maria faced the impossible task of saying goodbye while keeping his body alive long enough to save 5 other children who were waiting for transplants. The accident had happened on a Tuesday evening at 7:47 p.m., a time that would forever be burned into Maria's memory. Miguel had been driving himself home from basketball practice, something he had done hundreds of times before, when a drunk driver plowed through the intersection at 65 miles per hour. The impact had been so severe that Miguel had been airlifted to the trauma center, where doctors worked for 6 hours to save his life before delivering the devastating news that his brain function had ceased. Maria's decision to donate Miguel's organs had not been immediate or easy. For 48 hours, she had clung to hope that the doctors were wrong, that her vibrant, athletic son would wake up and smile at her the way he had every morning for 16 years. But when the neurologist explained that Miguel's brain showed no activity and that he would never recover, Maria remembered a conversation they had had just 3 months earlier, when Miguel had gotten his driver's license and checked the organ donor box. "Maria," Ellen began with unusual gentleness, recognizing the profound grief radiating from this mother. "First, I want to say how sorry I am for what you're going through." Maria nodded, her voice barely steady. "Thank you, Ellen. Miguel would have wanted me to be here, to tell people about organ donation." Ellen felt the weight of Maria's loss, and the strength it took to be there. "Can you tell us about Miguel? He was everything good in this world," Maria said, tears beginning to flow. "Star basketball player, honor student, wanted to be a pediatric nurse. He spent his weekends volunteering at the children's hospital." Ellen felt moved by the young man's character. "He sounds like an incredible person. The night of the accident, he had stayed late at practice to help younger kids with their shooting form." Maria continued, "That was Miguel, always helping others." Ellen realized Miguel's generosity was continuing even in death. And now he's still helping others. "His heart is going to a 12-year-old girl in Dallas," Maria said, her voice gaining strength. "His liver will save a 8-year-old boy in Phoenix. His kidneys are going to 2 teenagers. His corneas will give sight to a blind woman." Ellen felt the magnitude of Miguel's final gift. 5 people will live because of Miguel's generosity. 5 families won't have to feel what I'm feeling, Maria said. "That's what keeps me going." Ellen was struck by Maria's focus on others, despite her own devastating loss. "How did you make the decision to donate his organs?" "Miguel made the decision," Maria said firmly. "When he got his license, he specifically asked about the organ donor option. He said if anything ever happened to him, he wanted to help people." Ellen felt the wisdom of this 16-year-old. What did he say exactly? Mom, if I can't use my body anymore, someone else should get the chance, Maria quoted, her voice breaking. He was always like that, thinking about others before himself. Ellen realized Miguel's character had shaped this decision. Tell us about the last 3 days at the hospital. I haven't left his side, Maria said. I've been talking to him, playing his favorite music, telling him how proud I am of the choice he made. Ellen felt the mother's vigil. Do you believe he can hear you? I don't know, Maria admitted. But I need him to know that I support his decision, even though it's breaking my heart. Ellen was moved by Maria's strength in honoring her son's wishes. What has this experience taught you about organ donation? That there's a severe shortage, Maria said, becoming passionate. Miguel's heart could have gone to 5 different children. There aren't enough donors. Ellen felt the urgency in Maria's voice. Why do you think people hesitate to become organ donors? Fear, misunderstanding, not wanting to think about death, Maria listed. But one donor can save 8 lives and improve the lives of 50 more people. Ellen realized the impact of a single decision. What would you want people to know about organ donation? That it's the most beautiful gift you can give, Maria said. Miguel's death has meaning because 5 children get to live. Ellen made a decision to bring in professional perspective. Maria, I want you to meet someone who works in organ transplantation. Dr. Patricia Williams, a transplant coordinator who specialized in helping families navigate organ donation decisions, emerged from backstage. She approached Maria with the gentle demeanor of someone who had supported hundreds of families through similar losses. Maria, Dr. Williams said softly, I want you to know how grateful I am for your courage and Miguel's generosity. Maria looked relieved to see someone who understood her situation. Thank you. This is the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I know, Dr. Williams said with deep empathy. But you're giving 5 families the greatest gift possible, more time with their children. Ellen felt the importance of Dr. Williams' perspective. Dr. Williams, can you help us understand the organ donation process? When someone like Miguel becomes a donor, we work quickly to match his organs with recipients who have been waiting, Dr. Williams explained. Time is critical to ensure organ viability. Maria looked interested in the medical details. How do you decide who gets which organs? It's based on medical compatibility, geographic location, time on the waiting list, and severity of need, Dr. Williams explained. It's completely fair and objective. Ellen asked about the recipients. Will Maria ever meet the people who receive Miguel's organs? That's up to the families involved, Dr. Williams said. Some choose to meet, others prefer anonymous letters, and some choose no contact at all. Maria expressed her feelings about contact. I'd like to know how they're doing, but I don't want to burden them with my grief. Dr. Williams addressed this common concern. Many recipients find great comfort in knowing about their donor and the family's sacrifice. Ellen felt the connection between donor families and recipients. What happens after tomorrow's surgery? The recipients will have their transplant surgeries immediately, Dr. Williams explained. Within hours, Miguel's organs will be giving life to 5 different people. Maria looked both sad and proud. Miguel always wanted to help children. Now he'll save them. Ellen asked about the emotional support available. What kind of support does Maria have during this process? We provide grief counseling, support groups with other donor families, and long-term follow-up, Dr. Williams said. This journey doesn't end with the donation. Maria seemed comforted by this information. I'll need help processing all of this. Ellen felt the ongoing nature of Maria's grief journey. What has surprised you most about this experience? How many people Miguel will help, Maria said. His tissue donations will help burn victims, people needing bone grafts, so many others. Dr. Williams reinforced the broader impact. One donor can potentially help over 100 people through tissue and organ donation. Ellen was amazed by the scope of Miguel's gift. Maria, what do you want Miguel's legacy to be? That he saved lives and inspired others to become organ donors. Maria said without hesitation. That his death made a difference. Ellen felt the power of turning tragedy into purpose. What would you say to parents who are hesitant about organ donation? Don't wait until you're in my situation to think about it, Maria urged. Talk to your children about it now, when you can make an informed decision together. Dr. Williams added important context. Family discussions about organ donation make the decision much easier during crisis situations. Ellen asked about the practical aspects. What should people know about becoming organ donors? Register with your state's donor registry, tell your family your wishes, and include it in your advance directives, Dr. Williams advised. Maria emphasized the personal aspect. And remember that you're potentially saving someone's child, someone's parent, someone's spouse. Ellen made an announcement that could honor Miguel's memory. We want to help spread awareness about organ donation in Miguel's name. Maria's eyes lit up through her tears. Miguel would love that. He always wanted to make a difference. Ellen felt moved by this mother's strength. What will you do after tomorrow? Start healing, Maria said, and work to honor Miguel's memory by promoting organ donation. Dr. Williams offered ongoing support. We have programs for donor families who want to become advocates. Ellen asked about Maria's immediate plans. How will you say goodbye to Miguel tomorrow? Tell him how proud I am, Maria said, tears flowing freely. That he's going to save 5 children and that his kindness will live on in them. Ellen felt the profound love in Maria's words. What do you want people to remember about Miguel? That he was a beautiful soul who chose to help others, even in death, Maria said. That love doesn't end when life does. The episode aired 1 week later, after Miguel's organs had successfully saved 5 lives, as promised. The response was unprecedented, with hundreds of thousands of people registering as organ donors and sharing Miguel's story across social media platforms. Maria attended the organ harvest surgery and said goodbye to Miguel, surrounded by the medical team, who would carry out his final wish. The surgery was successful, and all 5 recipients survived their transplant operations. The 12-year-old girl who received Miguel's heart sent Maria a drawing of an angel with basketball wings. 3 months later, Maria returned to Ellen's show for a follow-up, looking different, still grieving but with a sense of purpose that had grown from her loss. She had become an advocate for organ donation and had met 2 of Miguel's recipients. How are you doing, Maria? Ellen asked with genuine concern for her journey. Some days are harder than others, Maria said honestly. But knowing that Miguel saved 5 lives gives my grief meaning. Have you met any of the recipients? I met Sarah, the girl who received Miguel's heart, Maria said with a bittersweet smile. She's playing soccer again. Miguel would love that. Ellen felt moved by the connection. What was that meeting like? Healing, Maria said. I could hear Miguel's heartbeat when I hugged her. He's still here, just in a different way. Dr. Williams, who had continued supporting Maria, joined the follow-up. Maria has become one of our most effective advocates for organ donation. Ellen asked about the broader impact. How many people have registered as organ donors since your first appearance? Over 200,000 people registered in the week after the show aired, Dr. Williams reported. Miguel's story has saved countless lives. Maria looked proud through her tears. That's Miguel's real legacy. Not just the 5 children he saved directly, but all the future lives that will be saved because people heard his story. Ellen kept a photo from that follow-up show, Maria holding the drawing that Miguel's heart recipient had made, her face showing the complex mixture of grief and pride that comes from losing a child while knowing their death saved others. Because Maria learned that love transcends death when it takes the form of ultimate generosity, and that a mother's worst nightmare can become other families' greatest miracle, that speaking about tragedy can prevent future tragedies, and that meaning can be found even in the most devastating losses, and that sometimes the most heroic thing a person can do is make the choice to help others when they no longer can help themselves. Miguel's legacy lived on, not just in the 5 recipients who carried his organs, but in the hundreds of thousands of people who were inspired by his mother's courage to register as organ donors themselves, creating a ripple effect of generosity that would save lives for generations to come.